It's a perfect example of using the cultural artifacts around you, which in his days was philosophy.
And a PS, because I mentioned this earlier, you said there's two distinct reasons for having this film talk. One is to engage individuals.
That's right.
And the second reason is to engage the culture.
Absolutely.
In the world, but not of the world.
Right.
But the question then comes, and this is going to be a controversial couch discussion, is that then do you say we're not watching Harry Potter, Twilight, and all these movies because they're wrong? And so then how do we as followers of Christ be a part of the discussion and culture, like you're saying, being separate but within the world, knowing what's going on, and then not subjecting ourselves to possibly movies that aren't good? Like, I think that's my struggle, because I love movies. I mean, you mentioned The Matrix. I love going to movies. It's social, it's community, it's hanging out.
Yep.
Now, some of the times I sit in movies, not great. I actually feel it like, ooh, that wasn't great.
How many don't take the Lord's name?
Right, but then others, I'm like, that was really fantastic. It might not have been necessarily, you know, I'm not going to say good, but I'm just saying it's not a Christian movie per se. And yet then Christians go on the other side and say, we will not see that or support any of that because that's all against what we believe. Yeah. How do you navigate through that?
Are there things you shouldn't watch? Yes. Are there things that you could safely watch? Yes. Most things are in the middle, and there may be some variation. I mean, there are movies that I'll watch with my wife that I wouldn't watch with my 17-year-old daughter. And there's movies that I'd be more comfortable watching with my son than with my daughter, okay? So there's a whole continuum of experience, and we can't always make neat black and white, instantaneous, quick decisions.
Well, and that's what I appreciated about this book, too, is that it's not about films are bad, movies are bad, and they're overtaking our culture, and don't see this and only support this.
Human.
And this is about discernment. This is about relying on God. And God is so outside of the box. You know, I think we've actually created an uncreative God. And we've allowed creativity to be flourished in other spheres, rather than God who created everything, who is the storyteller.
And made man creative.
Who knows humanity more than anyone else. You know, we've taken that creativity out of him and said, movies are bad, we can't be part of that. I like that you actually are saying we need to engage God as we're watching films, as we're engaging in these stories. You know, you could have an encounter with God in a totally silly movie. You can have a transcendent moment.
How about
Of course
Up?
You can.
I mean,
That was on my mind. Yeah, if you don't cry, you don't have a soul. I mean, marvelous,
Now everybody's going to watch Up and go, okay, better cry at the end now that you said that.
Or Sense and Sensibility.
Oh, yes.
I lose it every time I watch that movie.
The Notebook. Sorry, Grant.
No, that
it was
was
all
good
about
too.
the chicken flicks.
Okay, actually, but
what about the young people? What about the teenagers? What these movies, they say that these movies, a lot of them are geared to the 14-year-old boy for some reason.
The largest ticket buying group are 13 to 22, okay?
And so how do we encourage our young people to watch these movies with these discerning eyes instead of just being sponges and soaking it all in?
Yeah. The natural state of man is that you're going to absorb whatever gives you pleasure and whatever feeds your natural depraved sinful nature, okay? So this is why even pagans know you have to have a movie rating system, which now of course is virtually worthless, okay? What you need to do is to look at something like IMDb, Internet Movie Database. As a parent, read the content advisory, figure out what's in the movie, and is this something that I can watch or my kids can watch.
Now, what was that? You just rattled off.
Internet Movie Database, imdb.com.
Okay.
Yeah, it's one of the best resources that you can
Write that down.
get. But okay, think about one of the major money-making genres right now that is aimed specifically at young people. I call it gornography.
Yeah.
Movies that don't necessarily have much of a plot. They tend to be fairly low budget, but they're aimed at young people, and they feature young people in situations, and this started with movies like Halloween, you know, 20, 30, 40 years ago. But nowadays, they can show with special effects horrific acts of violence and torture, showing the human body in pain and suffering for entertainment value, for shock and entertainment value. Now here's the problem with that. The human body is sacred. It's sacred. This is why monogamous marriage is so important, because the human body is sacred. And showing the body in pain as part of a plot device.
Or chopped up.
is
some
just
way.
is just a terrible thing, and it's aimed at young people in the same way that the Twilight movies, which are these kind of romantic vampiric movies, are aimed at young people. And I watched a few minutes of one of those flying across to Europe with my daughter a few months ago, and I said, let's watch a few minutes of Twilight. And she was laughing her head off because she's in a classical school and she's reading Augustine and the Bible and Virgil and things like that. And she's like, well, this is just ridiculous.
It's just a bad music
Yeah,
video.
but I do want to ask you about that. I mean, there is the gore factor for sure, but I'm sensing there's some women watching the show today, and we want to talk about the chick flick. You know,
Sure.
these neat little tidy movies that, you know, tap into our need for romance, our need for that emotional high, and these fantasies. And I sometimes think, like, I look back at some of the movies I've watched in the past, and I think, man, they've really given me some bad theology about relationships.
Sure. Yeah, my wife's favorite chapter in the book is the chapter that I wrote on romance, right? Hollywood invents romance. And you get, you know, I retell the story of Marty, right? And Marty's got the girlfriend, and the girlfriend is really unattractive, and he's really unattractive, and he's middle-aged, and neither one has any prospects, and all of his friends are teasing him, and his wife doesn't like the girl, and he says, look,
His mother.
she's a dog. Yeah, his mother. She's a dog. You don't like her. Nobody likes her. My mother doesn't like her, and I'm a fat, ugly little man, and I'm going to get down on my knees and beg that girl to marry me. See, he chooses to be satisfied, and that's what's really romantic. He knows that being happy means choosing to give your life sacrificially to love another person. You compare that with the Titanic or almost any other kind of movie where you see this relationship, you're like, okay, you know what, the credits roll, the movie's over. But if that was real, they were doomed. They would both go down with the ship. Okay? And what happens is Hollywood has created this idea of romance that it is as far from the Song of Solomon as you could possibly get. They want to get the visceral elements of the Song of Solomon, but they don't want to understand the holiness and the sacredness of human relationships and the morality of those relationships. They don't want to do it. I mean, you watch a movie from the 30s and people kiss and it kind of fades out.
Yeah.
You watch a movie now and it zooms in.
And it stays there for a while. And we're in, you know, what I think too then, and as we were talking, I think it's important then to be discerning, especially with our young people, to talk with them. Like if you're going to watch a movie, then why don't you have a family night and talk with them? Say, let's pause that. Okay, was that a good thing or not so good thing? How do we feel about this? Does that align up with our Christian values? No? Okay, well then we've acknowledged that. Now let's continue on the movie. I think the biggest thing, I think for Christians is we then say, we're afraid of it, we don't want to discuss it, then we push it away. Rather than engage it and say, let's talk about it, let's be thoughtful and discerning and wise about it and learn from this.
I know that when Titanic came out in 1996, 97, our daughter was 12 at the time, and all of her friends were going to see Titanic. And so I told my husband, I said, I'll take her to Pizza Hut, we'll have a nice long talk, we'll go see Titanic, then we'll go out for ice cream after, and we'll talk about it before and after and kind of dissect it. And that's what we did, and that really opened the door to a lot of conversations about movies.
And actually, you say, Grant, that you've written this book in a relaxed style, although it's heady in places.
It is.
Well, you are a professor.
You're a professor.
Teacher of the year, 2 years.
2 years.
Gotta mention that.
Teacher of the year. You want this to be like the kind of conversations we love to have after a movie.
That's right.
And it very much stirs
That's
up
right. And,
all
and,
this.
and even though Melinda said, well, you know, it's entertainment, what you described is entertainment that has been analyzed, and that's what you should be doing anyways. What my wife and I love to do is we love movies. She's an artist, she's very visual, and I like stories, so we're a perfect movie watching couple. We have our tea and we watch the movie, and then we always talk about it, sometimes for days afterwards. And our favorite movies we'll watch repeatedly because they're very powerful.
Is the music. In
Oh,
the
it's
movie.
absolutely central.
Music, yeah.
Turn off the sound. Turn off the sound, and the movie goes away.
You won't have to do.
You
Right?
have to.
Or
you
the
absolutely
soundtrack.
have to have
Soundtracks,
that.
right.
Yeah. I mean, if you've seen Inception, the recent Chris Nolan movie, the music in that, particularly at the end, is so powerful that if the soundtrack was off, you'd be like, well, that movie didn't end
Just
too
be a
well.
weird vision.
So would you ever be a movie producer? Would you ever create a movie? Is that something that's percolating right now?
You know, I'm a busy guy. I mean, I chair humanities at Trinity Classical Academy, and I'm designing their curriculum, and I climb mountains, and I'm married, and I've got a wife and a couple of kids, and I teach full time, and I write, and I travel all over the place. Would I have time to do that?
Maybe as a hobby.
I try
I
to
don't know.
sleep from time to time. I have friends who are producers and directors. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go to a screening of Clint Eastwood's new movie and meet Mr. Eastwood in a couple of days.
He's 80.
And,
And
and he's a
Unforgiven,
stud.
Unforgiven is a movie you
Yeah,
quote. in your book.
Unforgiven is the centerpiece of the first chapter.
Well, we are
and I'm
so
going to give him a
glad-
copy of the book.
We are so glad that you had the time to write this book,
Wish we had
Grant.
more
Now,
time. I know, wish we
where
had
can
more time.
people get a copy of this book? If they're saying, I got to read this.
Oh, everywhere. It's been on the Amazon.com bestseller list ever since it came out June 15th. You can get it in bookstores,
All right.
Amazon, Barnes & Noble, anywhere.
If you want contact information to Grant and all that he's doing, just log on to our website at crossroads.ca and that information will be there. Grant Horner, thank you so much.
Thank you so
for
much.
writing this book. It's been
great
a
to meet
great
y'all.
conversation. Well,